What are you really good at in your riding? What do you do really well? If you're struggling to come up with an answer to this question, then you're not unlike a lot of the riders that I work with, but you're also really limiting your potential as a rider and your ability to learn and progress. I'm Callie, and you're watching CRK Training. This is my weekly video show on horse care, on riding tips, and on horse training advice. And today, I'd like to talk about the idea of positive learning. I think a lot of times when people think about positive learning, they picture just having this continual, great, happy attitude about everything. So even if you go out and you have just a crappy ride, you're supposed to say that, you know, it's okay, it'll be better tomorrow, and I've just got to keep plugging along. So while this is definitely not bad advice, and it is a great attitude to have, what I want to do in today's video is not just try to give you motivation and tell you to keep going, but I want to actually give you 3 strategies to incorporate positive learning into your riding and your work with your horse. And the reason is that when we use these strategies for positive learning, we can learn faster, we can retain more information, and we can actually progress a lot more quickly. Breaking old habits, being able to get out of old muscle memory, old patterns, and incorporate new ideas to ride much better. The first strategy is to acknowledge what you're good at and celebrate your success. So the next time that someone compliments you, it might be your riding instructor, it might be just a friend that says, "Good job, you rode that really well, your hands stayed really quiet through that transition." Think about your own self-talk. So do you acknowledge that compliment and acknowledge the fact that you did something well? Or do you right away go to kind of defer it by saying, "Yeah, but I'm still terrible at the sitting trot, and they just bounce everywhere as soon as I try to do sitting trot"? Notice your own self-talk and then make a conscious effort to change it. Because when you do something well, or when you meet a small goal, or even when someone does something as simple as complimenting, try to really take that in and acknowledge it. The next step to this is to visualize what you want to do. So this goes along with the idea of self-talk, and when you hear a piece of advice, make sure that you always translate it into what you want to do. So for example, if you're riding and your instructor says, "Stop leaning forward," you want to translate that into, "I need to sit back," or "I need to sit taller." And you might have some more specific thoughts, specific phrases that you've learned that come into your mind, but you always want to focus on what it is that you want to do, not on what you don't want to do. And I try to do this when I'm teaching riders, but you want to kind of take responsibility for your own learning and make sure that when you are trying to remember things that you want to do, or when you're hearing advice from others, that you always translate it into what you want, not focusing on "stop doing this." And one of the big reasons comes into visualization. So when we can visualize ourselves doing something well, doing what we want to do, it's much easier to replicate that in action than if we're just visualizing what we don't want to do. We'll tend to move in the way that we're visualizing. And if you want to take this a step further, I've actually done a whole nother video on visualization. We'll put the link below. But there is some research that shows it's more effective to visualize from a first-person perspective, meaning visualizing as though you're in your own body and you're actually doing it. The next strategy in positive learning is to see the humor in your mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. When we're learning something new, we make a ton of mistakes. It doesn't matter who we are or what we're trying to learn. And the more that you can just free yourself up to laugh at your failures, to be okay to do something a little bit wrong, you're going to actually be much more open to trying new things. And when you try new things, that's what's going to get you into new movements or even new ways of thinking that are going to really help you progress. So try not to take yourself seriously, don't be afraid of mistakes, and just try some different stuff. That leads right into our third strategy, which is in order to change old patterns, we want to do something that's new, that's different, that involves experimenting, and that is curiosity provoking. This is especially true for changing movement patterns, and so much of our riding is old movement patterns. So things like bracing on the stirrups to push our heels down, or leaning forward in certain transitions. When you're struggling with something, with an old pattern, old muscle memory, and you need to change it, if you can find a completely different way to go about finding that feeling or making that change, it's much more effective. So the way that I like to do this in my own teaching, and I've learned this from some of my mentors like Wendy and Angelo, is using different tools that create new experiences and just completely break old patterns. So one of the examples is if you're learning to have a better contact, you can just change the way that you're holding the reins and hold them in a way that's completely different than how we would normally hold the reins, but it can break that old pattern and suddenly you have a completely different feel of what you're trying to achieve. We can also do things like using the Franklin balls, the little squishy plastic balls that you can sit on that suddenly change what you're experiencing as far as the sensation of what you're sitting on. And all of a sudden you can find some different postures and different positions through your back and through your seat, and you can start to feel where your weight is. There's all kinds of little ideas and little tools like this that you can use. And sometimes it's as simple as just getting a new perspective. So it's going to a new instructor. It is picking up a different book. It's just getting some kind of new information that gets you reinvigorated and excited about what you're doing and gives you some fresh ideas and perspectives to move forward with. When you incorporate the strategies of positive learning, you're not only going to be able to learn faster and make changes more quickly and more lasting, but you're also going to find that the whole process of learning can become more fun and enjoyable. And also, these same ideas apply to training our horses. So we can use these exact same concepts of positive learning in our training as well, not just trying to improve our own riding. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Now it's your turn. I'd love to hear from you and just tell me one thing that you're good at. So go ahead and put that in the comments. I look forward to seeing that. And if you're watching this anywhere besides crktrainingblog.com, go there. That's where the best conversation happens. And I've got loads of other free resources for you there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.